The NFL season is officially over and we are one day closer to the NFL draft. Here are 5 sleepers that you need to remember when it comes draft time. Number 1 is Florida quarterback Graham Mertz. Mertz was the starting quarterback from Wisconsin from 2019 to 2022, where he played 34 games. His completion percentage was 59%. He had 5,400 passing yards, 38 touchdowns to go along with 26 interceptions. Mertz transferred to Gainesville in 2023, and the difference between Florida and Wisconsin was night and day. In 2023, he had 11 games. He had a 72.9 completion percentage that led the SEC and was third in FBS. He had 2,903 passing yards to go along with 20 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Something to keep in mind with those 3 interceptions for Graham Mertz, all 3 of those interceptions were tipped passes, so it's not like his interceptions were just terrible throws or anything like that. And then to go to the 2024 season, in 5 games, his completion percentage was 76%. He had 791 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He tore his ACL against Tennessee back in October, and I think it'll hurt his draft stock quite a bit. I know lots of people don't think Graham Mertz is that good, but as a Florida fan, Mertz is so much better than people realize. Him tearing his ACL is definitely going to hurt his draft stock, but I still think a team should take a late round flyer on him, maybe in the 6th or 7th round. Any quarterback needing team would be crazy to pass up on Graham Mertz on day 3. Despite playing at Florida, one of the premier college football teams, Graham Mertz is one of the biggest sleepers in this year's draft. Another sleeper in this year's draft is Marshall safety J.J. Roberts. Roberts started his career off at Wake Forest, where he played from 2020 to 2022, playing 32 games with the Demon Deacons. He started with Marshall in 2023, where in 10 games he had 73 tackles and 2 interceptions. This season for the Thundering Herd, in 13 games, he had 94 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 14 passes defended, and a field goal block. Those 14 passes defended were second most in FBS this season, and J.J. Roberts was the highest graded safety this year according to Pro Football Focus. Roberts was a huge factor in Marshall's success this season along with Mike Green, and I think somebody definitely needs to take a chance on J.J. Roberts. I've not seen hardly any mock drafts have him getting drafted, which to me is absolutely insane. If you need some more help with your secondary and if you're drafting in later rounds, J.J. Roberts is the perfect fit for your team. Another sleeper that you need to remember for the NFL draft is Dorian Strong, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. This year in 12 games, Strong had 748 snaps, over 400 coverage snaps. He allowed 27 receptions. He had 2 interceptions. This was really a down year for Strong considering how good of a 2023 campaign he had, where he played 13 games, played 710 snaps. He had 363 coverage snaps while allowing only 9 receptions, which was tied fewest in FBS. He allowed the FBS low only 83 yards. He had 11.8 passer rating when thrown towards him, and that was the second fewest in FBS, to go along with 3 interceptions as well. Dorian Strong was considered to be a first-round pick heading into this year's college football season, but his draft stock took quite a bit of a hit with his down performance this year. I still think he's one of the better corners in this year's draft. I know he had a down year, but if you can get that 2023 performance like he had, you're looking at one of the best cornerbacks in this year's draft. Dorian Strong is somebody you need to remember in this year's draft. 2 more sleepers that you need to remember. One is Efton Chisholm, the wide receiver from Eastern Washington University. This year for Eastern Washington, Chisholm had 120 receptions for 1,311 receiving yards. He had 11 yards per reception, 13 receiving touchdowns, and this year he had games where he had 157, 170, and 173 receiving yards in a game. Chisholm has been one of the most consistent wide receivers in college football these last couple of years. In 2023, he had over 80 receptions, over 900 yards, and 8 touchdowns. In 2022, he had 59 receptions, over 550 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. And in 2021, he had 57 receptions, over 700 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Having 36 receiving touchdowns throughout his collegiate career is unheard of anymore, and he's had at least 6 receiving touchdowns each of the last 4 seasons, which is absolutely incredible. Chisholm might not get talked about because he played at a small school like Eastern Washington, but that still should not take away the spectacular performances he's had the last couple of seasons. Somebody definitely needs to take a chance on Efton Chisholm, the wide receiver from Eastern Washington. The final player on this list is Central Arkansas running back Shandarick Powell. This season for Central Arkansas, he had 163 rushing attempts for 1,334 rushing yards. That equals to 8.2 yards per carry. He had 14 rushing touchdowns to go along with 36 receptions, over 300 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. In his lone game this season where he played an FBS opponent against Arkansas State, he had 15 rushing attempts for 176 receiving yards, 2 rushing touchdowns to go along with 50 receiving yards. I know lots of people were talking about him playing at Central Arkansas. He's not played against good competition, but when he's played against bigger teams, he's played very, very good. In 2023 against Oklahoma State, he averaged 6 yards per carry. Against powerhouse North Dakota State, he had 18 rushing attempts for 218 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Powell's been one of the most reliable and consistent running backs in the country this last couple of years. In his 2023 campaign, he had 130 rushing attempts for over 1,000 rushing yards, 7.5 yards per carry, and 6 rushing touchdowns. In 2022, he had 221 rushing attempts for 1,513 rushing yards to average 6.8 yards per carry and 18 rushing touchdowns. The last 3 seasons, Powell has had 38 rushing touchdowns and nearly 4,000 rushing yards. I know him playing at Central Arkansas will hurt his draft stock because he didn't play at a big school, but with those type of numbers, he has to get a chance in the NFL. Those are just a few players who I think are sleepers in this year's NFL draft. Comment some players who you think are sleepers in this year's draft. That about does it for this video. If you're new to my channel or if you've seen my videos before, make sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hines Show.